What's up, party people? Welcome back to another episode of Party XP. I'm a returning Jeff after a slew of weeks of sick children and sick me, but I'm happy to be back. And joining me as always is joining me as always. You heard him there, is Lakan. Say hi, Lakan. And now, thank you for manning it while I was gone here. It just kind of worked out that way. That every single time we were ready to record, somebody was getting sick in the house again. So.
Yeah, just bad timing. I mean, it's fine. Again, like I got more free time and less responsibilities than you do, so I might as well, pick up the extra slack. Listeners, thank you also for tuning in for those episodes. I hope my ramblings weren't, too crazy. I'm not a psychopath just yelling out into the ether over here. Those were fun episodes to record, even if they were like solos, and I kind of had to, change up the running order on the fly, right? But it was, at least with some stuff that I was kind of interested in. The Triple I initiative was a big deal for me. I was very, very excited for that one. And then the other one was kind of just me rambling, so it was fine.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah, I was over on our Twitter talking about that as well. And so, you can go back to last week and listen to Lakan talk about it. But, for me, like, I was super into Kill Knight. I was super into Dino Lords, super into What the Car. I thought What the Car was really funny and, like, different. The Steamboat Killy game, I don't know what it's actually called, but the
Mouse.
Yeah, Mouse.
Just
that
Mouse,
was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm surprised Dino Lords was, because I don't remember if I actually left it in the edit or not, but because I saw it and I was like, I don't know if this is a Jeff game, because this looks like an RTS meets, again, the absurd dinosaur arc kind of gameplay. So
yeah,
but I mean, I know you were a Warcraft guy, so
that's exactly it. I my first foray into PC gaming was Warcraft 3.
Okay.
So, like, I love RTS games. I'm just not good at them.
Yeah, same.
That's the thing.
Yeah, there was some bangers in that Triple I showcase, man. I mean, Slay the Spire 2 was like massive. Like that, like I was so hyped for that.
Right.
And then, updates to Risk of Rain 2, which I know you and I have talked about before, at least offline. But yeah, that Mouse game looks really cool. Like there's so much stuff that I was like, I'm wishlisting so many of these right off the bat. And I'm just like so stoked for when they're actually going to come out, and some of which are going to come out like I think end of this month or beginning of next month.
Yeah,
so
very soon.
Very close. I'm very excited for a lot of those ones. Looking forward to it. We have a lot of stuff coming out.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about indie games. We're here to talk about an established character, one that is celebrating his own very special day on Saturday, and that's Kirby, character that's near and dear to our hearts.
My boy.
So I figured we'd talk a little bit about Kirby, talk about a few games that we really enjoyed, and celebrate Kirby Day. How's that sound?
Sounds fantastic to me.
So I do want to kind of start. I don't know if you have anything kind of like that you put together that you wanted to start with.
Yeah, I've got a small little, like very small snippet, like prep of like who Kirby is.
Oh yeah, well that's more than I have. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who Kirby is, who doesn't know?
We are doing a Kirby themed episode because April 27th is the day Kirby's Dream Land was released in Japan. Kirby was created by Masahiro Sakurai as the player character in the 1992 video game Kirby's Dream Land. Masahiro Sakurai was also the creator and director of the Smash Bros. Series. Kirby also has the signature skill or ability to inhale objects or creatures and spit them out as projectiles, as well as the ability to suck in air to float over obstacles and fly for short distances. His copy ability grants him the power to adopt the abilities of the creatures that he inhales, and he puts on a little costume while doing it, or transforms his shape. He uses these abilities to rescue various lands, such as his homeworld planet Popstar, from evil forces and antagonists such as Dark Matter, or Nightmare, or Marks, or any of these other creatures that he fights along his ways. He also runs across his rivals King Dedede and Meta Knight pretty often in a lot of these games. He is a happy-go-lucky, innocent, cheerful character and loves food. All of the items that recover health in his games are food items, like the tomato, candy, ice cream, bananas, fruits, any burgers, anything, any sort of food item basically are all of the healing items within his games. Big fan of Kirby as a character. He's a cute little puffball. My enjoyment of Kirby games was definitely rekindled when I started hunting for a copy of Kirby's Canvas Curse back in like 2019. 2020 like is when I started looking for it again, because it's one of those that like I played a little bit and I was like, I never actually finished this one. Let me see if I can find it. And then that's actually like kind of like what kind of jump started my whole retro game collection, actually, like trying to find a copy of this one complete in box back on eBay and then like driving around to look for it. I realized I'd missed out on a bunch of Kirby games, specifically the ones on the
Same.
handhelds.
Same here.
Within like almost like a 10-year span, like from like 2000 something, like I don't know, maybe like 2010 or so, 2011. I hadn't played a Kirby game basically, and so it broke in 2019 or 2018. I don't know. The drought was finally broken with Kirby Star Allies on the Switch, so there was that one. The first Kirby game that here's a question for you actually. The first Kirby game that I played was actually a spin-off title.
Okay.
Was a Kirby's Dream Course, the
Oh,
golf
really?
game.
Okay.
Yeah, that was actually the first like at least the ones that I can genuinely remember me actually playing as a kid. But main title game, the first one I played was Kirby's Adventure on NES, but like later,
Right. Okay.
like, you know what I mean? Because we had both consoles, you know, and Gabe and I just kind of bounced between like the NES, the SNES, and the Genesis, whichever one we were just feeling. But like I remember eventually I had gotten like a copy of it when I was a kid. You know, maybe we borrowed it from Pathmark or something. The Pathmark again. There we go. I have to bring it up every time, or the Blockbuster or the West Coast Video. Like I remember we had to borrow it because I know I don't have a physical copy of the original Kirby's Adventure on the NES. What was your first Kirby game? At least that you could remember anyway.
Right. So I know the first Kirby game I played was Dreamland 2, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later here. But I also had a situation like you where I had a Kirby spinoff. I had Kirby's Pinball Land. I actually just found it.
Hell
I found it a few months ago. And I was like, no way.
That's such a good game. It's so good. Like even like the fact that all the spin-off games are just as good as like the main title games, like just like shows like the creativity. I think with the whole HAL Laboratory, right? That was the company that Sakurai was head of essentially. That was working basically under Nintendo. They're like a first.
Yeah, I would call them a second party. Basically, they only make Nintendo games, but they're like their own studio, right?
Yeah. Kind of like how the Game Freak is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, a question for you is like, what do you think makes Kirby so popular, or why do you like Kirby?
I think it's a couple of things. For me, obviously, like the character is super cute and cuddly, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me the big thing is the copy abilities and the ability to kind of change your arsenal to fit the mood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little different than say a Mario game where you only have like 3 or 4 different power-ups maybe in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby has, upwards of 10 to 15 to 25, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what game you're playing. And there's always something new. There's a new way to sort of explore the worlds that you're in when you're playing a Kirby game. And the music's always great. The villains, the character design's always great. I think that's kind of what contributes to sort of my love for the character and the game. The games that he stars in.
Mm. Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because from what I was doing when I was doing a little bit of research for this episode, I found out that I kind of knew this before, but like it reminded me when I saw it, is that Kirby was actually like a fill-in. He was not supposed to be like that. That was kind of like the fill-in sprite that they were using while they were developing the game,
right?
And then it kind of just stuck.
Thank God,
because he's just a little, he's just a little blob circle character basically, and then it ended up becoming let's just keep him in the game kind of thing, right?
Right.
And there's lots of stories about the development of the Kirby games, at least the first one, right, where it was a different time, but basically this game was developed for women and children because it was meant to be super easy, and housewives needed something to do when they were home. That was
nice.
I remember seeing like a translation of that, in an early interview.
Well, listen, at least they're not being like, well, there's always something to clean. It's hey, why don't you take a few minutes and play this Kirby game?
When I look at that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of absurd because everyone should like the Kirby, right? Like the Kirby games are very simple, right? They're very they're known for being pretty easy, pretty simple. But I think there's a lot of character to them, and I think that is kind of like why Kirby is so popular. Like, you're right, the character design is very simple but very distinct, right? Like we look at Meta Knight, you know exactly who he is. You look at DDD, you know exactly who he is. The Waddle Dees, like everyone loves the Waddle Dee design. All any of the little monsters you see there, they clearly show, like what the power up is or what the element of the power up is going to be, right? They're very clear. You know exactly what you're going to get out of them, and it's kind of done in it's almost like a cute version of like video game shorthand, right? Like for a lot of the monsters within the Kirby games. The music's great. basically, I don't think I've ever heard like a song that I didn't like out of Kirby, right?
Exactly.
I remember hearing this. I don't remember where the hell I heard this, but I remember hearing this, and I want to hear your opinion on it. Someone had claimed that Kirby and Sonic are in the running for having the same number of like bad games surrounding them.
What? I don't know. To be honest, I don't think so.
Right? I feel like I've enjoyed more Kirby games than I've enjoyed Sonic games.
I feel like Sonic games are bad because they're broken messes, or they have, stupid concepts, or all of the above in the case of like Sonic 06. I
Yeah.
think the Kirby games are just easy, and then also Nintendo tried to get a little creative with Kirby throughout like the 2000s.
Yeah, there was definitely some like more, like I still liked a lot of the Kirby games, like most of the Kirby games, but there were definitely some where I'm like, this is a bit of a miss, but I still enjoyed my time with it, kind of thing, right?
Right.
Uh,
And I think that's what people are confusing. They're confusing bad, and I implore them to play these actually awful Sonic games
yeah,
and then go back and play
the quote
like
unquote worst Kirby game.
right, exactly. And like go play Sonic 06, the actual like busted Sonic 06, not like the
Yeah,
fan remake that fixes a lot of the problems, but like the actual busted Sonic games, and then go play whatever you think the worst Kirby game is. And then compare the two, and you'll see there's nothing there. The Kirby games are generally made pretty well from what I
yeah. I think that's kind
gather.
of that Nintendo, right? Like kind of like Nintendo QA almost.
Right.
Where it's kind of hard to throw out like a really bad product there. They like Nintendo will not put it out there basically if that's the case.
Unless it's Pokemon Red and Blue,
Yeah.
just held together by duct tape.
Or any of the other Pokemons basically.
Right, pretty much.
Ugh.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, I feel like the Kirby games, yeah, even like in speedrunning, I don't see much in the way of like glitches or exploits or things like that people tend to take advantage of when it comes to
Mhm.
Kirby games. But Sonic games are full of them. I mean, you look at a Sonic 06, or pardon me, a Sonic Adventure speedrun, and half the time
Mm.
you're spent just clipping through barriers and
Yeah.
falling into endless space for most of the levels.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of wild.
yeah, no, I import a Sonic fan definitely said that. By the way, like a
Yeah.
Sonic fan definitely tried to say
I
that.
heard
And
that and I was like, I've played most Kirby games and I've played most Sonic games and I'm gonna say that there's no way that
no,
that tracks.
no, Sonic's best game is probably Kirby's like middle of the pack, maybe
Right?
like middle best game, right? Like
Yeah. Well, I
that's
mean,
what I
like
would say to that.
if you argue like a Sonic 3, right? We put that against like I don't know, like maybe like a
Pick your favorite Kirby, right?
ooh, yeah, and that's the thing is like what I pick like my main line versus like the spin-off games, right?
Right. No,
There's
I
a lot
know.
going on over there. So yeah, I remember just hearing it. And I was like, I want to hear your opinion, just because like I've kind of been ruminating by myself for the last like I don't even know like how long I've heard it before, but like it's just like there's no way that that's true, right? You know what I mean? It's kind of been in the back of my head basically. And then I got the last thing I've got here is I watched a lot of Terminal Montage. Do you know who that is on YouTube?
Nope.
So Terminal Montage is an animator, and they make like derpy images of like well-known video game characters. Specifically, they've had like a whole series on like something about Mega Man, something about Sonic games, something about Kirby, something about Star Fox, right? And then they've even done like a whole like thing with Speedrunner Mario versus like Melee Fox kind of thing.
Right. Okay.
So it's like you I think if you've seen some of the if you look it up you'll recognize some of the way they draw the characters, and they draw Kirby as like a full on derp, like derpy looking little guy, and all he says is Pollo the entire thing, and just the depiction of it is just like hilarious because he's this cute little guy. Then he's the most powerful being in all of the universe, which is funny because in many of the games he actually might be because the games always go kind of absurd when you play them.
Who's this person again?
Terminal Montage is the animator,
Got it.
and because of the fact that Kirby is like kind of hinted at right in a lot of the games or in the animations, and even more so like or recently in Smash Ultimate, right? There's a reason why he survived the World of Light intro basically, where he was the
Right.
only everyone else got turned into to spirits or statues. I'm sure there's a little bit of bias here, right, for Sakurai, right? But
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Just
yeah,
thinking about
that's
it, right?
both of them are his babies, right? So it's
Right.
like okay, it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, again, like Kirby is kind of like joked at to be like this all powerful being because he literally takes down like gods or like the creators of the universes in a lot of his games. It's really kind of funny how absurd the games get towards the end of all of them.
I do like the Kirby. I like the Kirby drawing that he
Right,
does.
he's just really derpy looking. It's so cute. I love it. But yes, that's all the notes I've got. I don't know if you got anything you want to tack on here before we start going into our actual the main course of our episode here.
No, it's just the Kirby series and Pokemon kind of like together were sort of my first forays in gaming outside of what was kind of like given to me. So I always kind of really, I always appreciated Kirby and games because, my cousins never had Kirby games. So that was sort of something that I explored on my own. And then I fell in love with the series. So for me, the Kirby series and then by extension Pokemon, because it was kind of like that same time, 95, 96, 97, when I kind of started branching out on my own and started playing my own games rather than just the hand-me-downs that I had. Kirby factored in pretty heavily to that. So for me, the series has always meant something to me. Unfortunately, like you said, like I kind of fell off for whatever reason. I don't know if it was just the other games that had come out in the meantime, like the mid 2000s into the late 2000s into the early 2010s. I'm thinking there's the introductions of sports games in my life and more
Online
fighting
shooters
games and things like
for
that.
us as well too.
Yeah,
like
Halos
we
and whatnot.
CODs, all that stuff, where we spent a lot of time playing Gears of War, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like maybe a little bit of like that, like, oh, I don't want to play this cute little guy. I want to, I want to shoot stuff. I want to blow stuff up, kind of thing, right? There's definitely a little bit of that going on, I think.
Maybe a slight bit, but I still played Pokemon, so that's kind of like not the thing. I don't know. I just didn't play the games for whatever reason, and I think a lot of it too corresponded with that change in direction in the Kirby games, where they were trying to get a little cute, right? The canvas curses, the Speak Squads, the epic yarns, things like that, where they were trying to take things in a different direction. Maybe just
to varying levels of success. Yeah, I get,
maybe just didn't appeal to me. And then so that's when when the 3DS came out, and I ended up getting the first game that I wanted to kind of touch on, Triple Deluxe, and I kind of came back to Kirby. Like it was a really nice breath of fresh air to be able to play Kirby again and enjoy these games again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just frame it for everybody else listening. I told Jeff to bring his personal top 3 Kirby games. So that's gonna be your first one. Is that your third place game?
I actually have a few OLIs I wanna talk about.
Okay.
First.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the original Dreamland's on my OLI. I mean, this is literally like you can beat this game in the waiting room at your dentist.
Yes.
Yeah. But hey, it started everything. It's fun. It's cute. It does the job, right? I think there was a lot for it to build off of, and again, like I said, we'll talk more about the Dreamland series a little later here. The OLI, of course, was Pinball Land. I wanted to talk about that, especially like in the vein of Pokemon Pinball, which I feel like gets a lot of the shine from the Game Boy pinball games.
Yeah,
Kirby's Pinball Land was a lot of fun.
Also very good. Very, very, very good pinball game. That was very fun as well.
You remember the Pokemon music, the Kirby music is just as good. You have actually 3 tables you can play on instead of just 2, like in Pokemon that only has the red and the blue. So, you can a little bit more variety. Kirby and the Crystal Shards I want to talk about because I never actually played a working live version of this game. I've only played this game as a ROM, and the ROM that was distributed back in the day was broken. You couldn't actually see the copy abilities in your HUD.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, that's actually one of my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
It just missed my top 3.
Yeah.
So Crystal Shards was in the N64. This was technically a side scroller, right?
Yes.
It's rendered in 3D, but it's just left to right gameplay. It's, if you want to use the 2.5D term, right? And this one was cool because it did the combining of abilities.
Right. So for the first time, your abilities could be combined. So you could either have like fire and cutter, or ice and fire, and then you turn into like a snowman that explodes, right, or something. Or is that fire and bomb, or snowman and bomb?
Snowman and bomb, I think it was. Yeah, because I remember like what was it? It was like if you put like cutter and spike, you made like either a spiky boomerang or something like that, or you had like the 2 like the piranha arms kind of thing, which is like a very cursed Kirby looking thing.
Yeah, it was like the Venus flytrap.
Yeah, Venus Flytrap one. Yeah, there we go. This had like really cool combination. I remember like spending a lot of time just playing like the first level over and over again, just trying to like oh, there's 3 powers here. I'm gonna combine all 3. I'm gonna play this entire level over again.
The other cool thing too is like if you got 2 of the same power, you had like hyper powered versions of it. So like I remember the big cutter was like a giant buzzsaw boomerang. I remember the what was it, like the snowball, like ice and ice, you turned into like a big snowball.
I think that was the first time you saw like the powered up versions of abilities, I want to say.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't remember any other time.
And then a form of this like combining copy abilities was followed up on and expanded a little bit in Kirby Squeak Squad or Mouse Attack in Europe. And that was also on my honorable mentions, because that one Kirby actually had like an inventory in that one where he could hold like up to like 5, I think it was like items and abilities like essentially in his stomach, right? It was like essentially like he was pocketing those abilities, and then you can combine them and move around on the go kind of thing, if I remember correctly.
Exactly.
That was the DS one, because that was essentially I think the bottom 3 was just essentially just your inventory, because that's how most 2D platformers went on the DS early on anyway, before they got to super creative with a lot of that stuff basically. My other honorable mention here, because I've only got 3. But with Squeak Squad is again very simple, but that's just because it was an upgraded version of the combining copy abilities and the inventory. Kirby's Mass Attack.
Okay.
So this is the one that came out on 3DS. Let me confirm that. Let me confirm.
Regular DS.
It was regular DS.
Yep.
2011. Okay, yeah. So this was the last game that was on the DS for the Kirby lineup. So this game's insanely cute because they made Kirby even tinier. There's 10 of them. So like the little miniature Kirbys, like they do a really good job of like making detail, right? Sure, Kirby's very simple in terms of shape and character design, but like he's still like so expressive. He kind of like moves around, like you see him kind of the different idle animations you could get of like all 10 Kirbys basically, and you're essentially it's almost like a side scroller Pikmin. You're kind of controlling the 10 different Kirbys and to attack enemies or interact with the environment. And this was one of the ones, not one of the first ones, but is one of the other Kirbys where you don't touch the D-pad basically at all. You control everything by touching the touchscreen, which you would think gets old very quickly, but this one's actually pretty fun. I think it's still enjoyable, and you tell them to what to attack as well too. And it's funny because you see the 10 Kirbys jump on like an enemy and just like fun like wombo combo one character. So it's adorable but hilarious at the same time. But yeah, those are my personal honorable mentions here.
Cool. All right. So I'm gonna jump in to my kind of like number 3, and like I said, it's the game that kind of reintroduced me back to Kirby and made me want to play these games again. Triple Deluxe came out in 2014 on the 3DS. I've actually played this game multiple times because I bought it, when it came out originally and played through it. And then when I was going on a trip, I bought it thinking it was the one I didn't play, which was Robobot.
Robobot, yeah.
And then I just ended up playing it again because I liked it so much. And so I like Triple Deluxe brought me back into it after so many years away. And it was fun. It's a fun little game. It's not super difficult. It's not, it's not going to rack your brain here, but it was a fun play. I really enjoyed the new abilities. So Kirby could like turn into a beetle now. He had like an archer ability that was kind of like hinted at in the crystal shards, but now it's like its own thing, which I thought was really cool. And it was really cool because you could like duck and like hide behind like cover as the archer, which I thought was pretty sweet. The other thing too that was cool is like once you beat the game as Kirby, you could play it as King Dedede, who quickly became one of my favorite characters because of Smash Brothers. Yeah. So like any chance I got to play as King Dedede, I played as King Dedede because that's my guy. So for me to be able to play as him in a Kirby game was so sweet. Like I thought that was so cool. So that's kind of why Triple Deluxe, a game that I know it doesn't really resonate with a lot of people. I think a lot of people disliked how easy the game was, but from what I can tell, like the reviews were pretty good for the game. And to me, like I said, it's the game that brought me back, and it let me play as Dedede. So it'll always have like a place in my heart. So that's why I'll put it at number 3.
I mean, to be fair, Triple Deluxe is kind of a return to form, right? Because we had Return to Dreamland back in 2011, right? And before that, we had Epic Yarn, which was super easy.
Yeah.
Like if we're gonna talk about like people complaining about Triple Deluxe, like the Yarn Kirby is insanely easy. It's still fun, but it's like probably the easiest game that I've ever played because you literally can't die in it.
Huh.
Return to Dreamland was kind of a return to form, right? Because I believe that was a remake or re-release of. Yeah, that was the main line that you kind of roll with the gang, right? That was your first.
Yeah. That was like the new Super Mario Brothers of Kirby.
Yeah, because before that,
multiplayer and all that.
The multiplayer, yeah, because there was one of the Game Boy Advance that had multiplayer. That was, I believe, that was Amazing Mirror. That was like multiplayer, right? But Return to Dreamland was a more modernized game, and again, kind of return to form. Triple Deluxe is like, I don't know, it's a pretty like fair return to form in terms of if you want to talk about like what is the core of a Kirby game, right? It's like it's abilities, it's some basic platforming. There's a little bit of like secondary exits right in this game, right? I could have sworn there was. I've actually only gotten like halfway through this one. I'm actually currently playing Triple Deluxe right now. But there's like some secondary exits, right? It's almost like a Metroidvania light game, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Because I remember that was also an Amazing Mirror. Amazing Mirror was almost like a Metroid kind of like Kirby game. So this kind of does a little bit of that as well too. But I mean, at its core, it's literally just like this is exactly what you want in like a a 3D Kirby game, right? Or at least a 3D rendered side scroller Kirby game. And even then, they do some really cool stuff with like kind of walking around vines, right? Kirby will walk up like a spiral, right, and kind of move behind like the foreground and stuff like that. So this does some cool stuff, and it's very well rendered, very well. This is very. I remember thinking this was a very colorful, like, and we're talking about Kirby games, but they're all very colorful. But this one pops. I remember like playing, like when I first started playing this one.
Think about it. It's in like a jungle, kind of like area, right? Kind of, or like the world seemed like very jungly, very full of vines and whatnot. So and green, a lot of green, a lot of gold, a lot of brown, right?
Yeah. This also came out on 3DS, so this has a little bit of extra power to render Kirby in 3D and do some 3D tricks and stuff too. So yeah, Triple Deluxe I think is like a perfectly fine game. Like I'm still currently playing, and I'm chipping away a lot of Kirby games right now. But it's a fun game. Like I remember enjoying myself for the most part as I'm still currently playing it.
Yep. One last thing, I don't know if this was the origination of the Big Suck. But to me, this is the first game.
This is the one.
When you get the fruit and you just do the big suck and you just eat everything.
Everything. Yeah, it's so good. And again, like it does a lot of cool stuff in terms of like design stuff, right? Because like I remember I started playing Super Mario Wonder. And that one, like when you pick up the Wonder Seed and like the level changes, gave me
because I haven't played it yet.
Well, you'll see it. You're gonna see exactly what I'm talking about. Where it reminds me of that same kind of like the world it's kind of like wavy and kind of whimsical kind of color wise. You'll see it. And it reminds me very much so of like the Big Suck from the Triple Deluxe game.
I have so many games on the Switch I still have to play, including one that I think you're probably going to bring up. So go ahead. What's your number 3?
So my number 3 is Kirby's Canvas Curse. I got the DS late. I did not get one very early on. I had to save up some money for it, and I also was just not good with saving my money when I was a kid.
Right.
But I remember getting it, and like this being one of the first ones that I played. I don't think I even bought this one. I think I borrowed this from a friend, and it's just like one of the most intuitive uses of like the DS touchscreen for me. Because you draw paths for Kirby to traverse, right, and launch off of, and you draw walls to block projectiles from hitting Kirby. Like, you know what I mean? It's very like intuitive, right, in terms of how they designed this game for it. And for a game that essentially Kirby moves on a rail, which is made by you, there's a surprising amount of freedom in how you're like allowed to play the game, right? You can stun enemies by tapping them. You can do little loop-the-loops if you really wanted to. Again, like it feels like you're kind of it reminded me almost like a Gyromite type of feel, where like I'm playing more like alongside Kirby, or I'm cooperating with Kirby essentially. That's like kind of like why I like this one. Again, it was very different from the other ones where you're just playing as Kirby, right? The art style is also gorgeous in this game because it has this kind of like wax pastel like aesthetic going on. Like the wax crayons type of thing.
Yeah.
A very specific art style that I really liked. I didn't like the follow up as much though. That was what the hell was that one called? Shoot, I forgot the name of it. because it was Canvas Curse and then Rainbow Curse, I think it was. Yeah, Rainbow Curse. That, but like because that was the one on the Wii U. It's similar ideas, but it just didn't play as like. It just wasn't as fun.
Right.
But yeah, I think Canvas Curse is probably like one of my favorite spin-offs in terms of Kirby games. Because technically it's not a mainline game. But yeah, really fun game. I really like Canvas Curse a lot. And again, this is the kind of the game that's set off my whole retro collecting hobby, basically.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. And I guess we'll go snake order, right? I'll go into my second game then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Second place for me, Kirby's Dream Course, another spin-off. That's another spin-off Kirby game. But man, Kirby's Dream Course fucking rules, dude. I have a lot of memories playing this with Gabe. A campaign, quote unquote, of sorts, right? Where I think the difficulty raises appropriately. The game show-esque music, right? When you finally sink Kirby into the hole, the super catchy, just like the game, like the overworld songs. Like I still like kind of I still recognize them, like off the top of my head. I still remember them. And this is one of those games where absolutely every time we rent this one from Pathmark or from West Coast Video, or Blockbuster or whatever, we spent as much time playing this game because this game was so fun. Powers, right? Because like in the single player, the powers are kind of like in the single player essentially it's like a movement puzzle, right? You're kind of trying to get Kirby to the end goal, right?
Right.
And then you use the powers to navigate yourself around the cores, and you put English on Kirby to make him spin and all this other stuff. But then in the 2-player, because you have to worry about killing enemies or coloring the stars, right, that enemies leave behind, and then you can use certain powers to traverse further, like the tornado, where it allows you to like spin and move around a bit under your control, or use the ability to like hit your opponent to make them lose an energy. Or essentially have like energy for a stroke, right? So it was a lot of like surprisingly like a decent amount of strategy in the 2-player of that game. And I remember I played Gabe again recently, like I wanted to say like a year and a half ago. He still lost to me. I still got it in this game.
I still got it, baby.
Really cool design, like right. I like the checkerboard going on, the day and night cycles in some of the maps. I think it's just a really well designed game, right? Like they put all the power ups exactly where you need them to be. Again, everyone's almost kind of like a movement puzzle, in terms of like how you actually want to play the whole, basically. And it's just you and all the abilities you can use to either interact with the hazards or completely avoid them. It's very, very free in how you want to play this game, and I it's just like there's a reason why this is like one of my favorite games I think ever. Like this, yeah. I'm surprised. I don't know if I ever brought up on the personal list, but I think this is like absolutely up there for me.
For sure. So kind of have a similar sort of thing here with my number 2. I touched on it before, but it's the first Kirby game that I played, Dreamland 2. To me, look, again, it's not anything that's going to be a heavy lift. I mean, you can beat this in a few hours. I mean, it's probably like a 3-4 hour game, but
I want to say the last time I played it was about like 4 hours ish.
Mm-hmm. But for me, I don't know, man. Just booting this back up, I had the chance to replay it again. It just got re-added to the Switch Online, the Game Boy Online.
Yes, very.
So I saw it there, and it was just staring at me, and I'm like, man, I haven't played this in so long. Let's go. So I ended up playing through it again, and it was a lot of fun. This introduces not just copy abilities to the handheld games, but it also introduces Animal Friends, something that I don't think goes much further than the third Dreamland game.
I don't believe so.
But I think it's something that's unique to the series. I think it's pretty cool. So you have Rick is a giant hamster who interacts with power-up abilities in his own ways. So for instance, if you get the rock ability, Rick turns into a giant boulder that Kirby can ride on and like traverse down ramps rather quickly and kill enemies. You have Coo the owl, who is like an owl, right?
Yeah.
And depending on the abilities you get, like if you get the cutter, Coo can shoot out 3, like a fan of blades, basically. Or if you get a fire power up, he turns into like a comet. And then you have Keen the fish, who can swim very well because he's a fish. My favorite Keen power up is the lightning bolt one, because he gets like a light bulb in his mouth, and his eyes like glaze over because obviously he's getting electrocuted. Mm-hmm. Because he's a fish underwater using a lightning ability. But then you can like fire the lightning bolt at people. I think is pretty sweet. Mm-hmm. And these three characters all kind of change the game in their own different ways. But like if you get stuck with Keen on land, obviously he's not as effective. Same thing with like Ku in the water. Rick's kind of like in the middle, right, as like the land character, but I think they just kind of like add a different sort of element to the game that you don't really see other places. And I don't know, it's fun, man. It's just a fun little game, and like a lot of these games, they're just fun little games that make you feel good. And again, because of where it came into my life and how it came into my life, it's always going to make me feel good. And this last playthrough definitely made me feel good while playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely safely put this at number 2. As you may have heard in the past, you'll know what number 1 is, but I'm interested to see what your number 1 is.
Okay, so my number 1, I think you already kind of predicted it earlier. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It is just so it's Kirby's first true 3D experience.
Kirby's Mario Odyssey.
I was so excited for this game to come out. I got my Switch. I was like, played Odyssey. I played Breath of the Wild. I was like, man, I hope Kirby gets a 3D game. Like, it'd be cool to see it. It doesn't have to be a fully, open world game. It doesn't have to be. I would have been glad with what I got. And then, boom, I get, that level-based type of gameplay still. But yeah, like, we get a full-on proper 3D experience with Kirby finally. Again, not counting, Triple Deluxe or Forgotten Shards, which are, again, for the most part, just 2D, like left and right side scrollers, right?
Right.
We got full on like the follow up to upgradable abilities, right? Because we mentioned it before in Crystal Charge, where if you had 2 of the same ability, you get essentially a bigger version, right? Here, Kirby gets from like the regular fire to spitting out like molten lava to spitting out dragon fire, which goes super far, right? Or going from the spike ability to being this ball of tetanus, like with like nails and springs and like pencils. And every ability just gets more and more absurd or more cool looking, basically. And it's funny because like there's almost this like Souls-like style of combat that this game kind of falls into, where Kirby can block, he can dodge roll, like and when he dodges, the game goes like does like a slowdown type of thing. It just looks so dramatic, but like it's so good and it's so fun. And because again, it's still a Kirby game. It's still pretty easy to play. I remember this is one of the ones where like on my second or third playthrough, I decided I'm going to try to do a no-hit run. Or if I do get hit, then I have to restart the level, right? Okay. I have to clear the levels. Again, it's still very easy. It's still a Kirby game, but because it still has some difficulty spikes in terms of like the boss battles in this game, again, it feels very Souls-like. And also, they did not have to go that hard with the remake for King Dedede's theme. It goes so hard. I love it. The music's fantastic in this entirety of this game. Again, it has like this kind of like semi-dystopian world type of thing going on, right? Because it's like kind of a different universe essentially from Kirby, but it doesn't get too dark. There's some moments where it feels like it's surprising. It's like it feels like it's almost out of touch for out of place for a Kirby game, right? Where like I'm in this like desert wasteland or this like creepy laboratory underground facility thing. This abandoned amusement park kind of thing that very reminiscent of like zombie movies. It was kind of very strange, but like it all somehow still works together, even though Kirby's clearly out of place. There's so much in this game that I really, really enjoyed, and I love for it. The mouthful mode was new, right? So that was one where Kirby eats a car or eats a traffic cone or a vending machine. It's almost like a modification of Big Suck. And again, there's initially like a really strange looking gimmick, right? Because it just contorts Kirby into this weird blob looking thing, right? But it's funny because like you see Kirby, like I remember like there's one of the ones in like some of the on track levels, right? There's Kirby essentially like absorbs like a cart of like a roller coaster, right? Like one of the seats in it, right? And he looks like a rocket ship. And it's funny because you can still see his little nubby arms kind of waving. So it's just like, it's so cute. I love it. There's like these little touches that are just really, really nice. If you suck up like the O of like a sign, right? He becomes like the fart cannon. Like what those like those air zookas, whatever they call them. Like he becomes that, and you can like knock air into fans, and then also like the little things of like. There's a sign that's missing an O, and you stand there and you get like a little reward for it. So these cute little moments where they kind of they play with the environment a lot, and these weird semi grotesque, like what I mean. If Kirby was not like the character that he is, a lot of these things would seem very gross looking.
Right.
But because he's such a cute little red, pink puffball, you put him you put a light bulb in him, and he just looks absurd, but it's so funny. There's even like a little hole in the wall challenge, like in a lot of the maps where like it's like you'll see like, oh, there's a rectangle supposed to be here. It's like, huh, have I seen a vending machine recently?
Yeah, right.
Or do I have to grab one and come back for it, kind of thing. There's even some levels that are literally like hole in the wall, like where like it's like bring the thing with you, get to this platform, and then a wall will start approaching you, basically. And again, it's strange looking, but there's a different charm to this game, and I this is genuinely like one of the Kirby games that I was like genuinely so happy to have finally come out. Get like a proper 3D experience for Kirby. Yeah, and exactly what you said. This is Kirby's like Odyssey. It's such a well made game.
Yeah.
Really also, I found out that so Sakurai was the voice of DDD while he was still at HAL. Yeah, at HAL. Yeah, and apparently now the latest I guess is it CEO or would have been like the chief director, I guess, technically at HAL. He's now also the voice of DDD.
That's awesome. That's
so, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like a thing where it's like, yeah, if you did be the lead director, you have to be the voice of DDD, basically. Yeah, I just saw that recently again. It's the same thing when I was like looking up some stuff on the history of the Kirby developments and like the CEOs, or at least the lead directors on the Kirby games. But yeah, so that's my top Kirby game. Has everything that I've ever wanted. It's cute as hell. Save all the Waddle Dees. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even there's a fishing mini game in that one too. You fish with the Waddle Dees, and it's like you create this entire kind of town. And that's another thing too. I got one last thing. Yeah. So every time you save like the Waddle Dees, right? There's like 5 to 6 or so that you get to save every level. By either clearing the level or finding them, like off the beaten path kind of thing. And then I remember this is like the game where like every time I like finished a level, I had to go back to the home base to see what the Waddle Dees were up to. Like, because it's really cute. You just see them hanging around town, and like sometimes they open up the cinema. They open up, this little like stand where they play little rock concerts. They open up a food stand.
That's
it's
adorable.
like it's really cute. Like it's like
so adorable.
Yeah, like,
oh my god!
And like you could wave to them. Kirby does this little wave, and the Waddle Dees will respond to you, and it's just like. It was just pure, like, dopamine hit. It was like, yeah, they're waving at me. They're friends. Like, I have to check in with them every time I finish a level kind of thing. And again, like, I had to 100% it because I was like, I will not leave any Waddle Dees behind. I will save all of my friends. But yeah, Kirby the Forgotten Land, fantastic game. Like, honestly, like, if you guys have, listeners, if you have a Switch and you haven't picked it up yet, shame on you. Go pick up Kirby in the Forgotten Land. It's such a good, well-designed game.
I have to play it. I have the problem is all these Nintendo games are always like $60 and like
yeah they don't really drop in price either.
The only problem, man. But
and the thing is too, I think this is my I heard about my cousin playing this with his son. So like my nephew, he's just starting to play 3D like video games. Okay. And the 2-player mode in this is like you can play as Kirby and Waddle Dee. So and because it is a relatively simple game, it's like it's so. It like like my cousin told me it's like one of the best ways to get kids to understand like a 3D space in terms of video games, right? Because before he was giving them only like 2D side scroller stuff or what I mean, stuff that very rarely interacted with the 3D, the foreground or the background. This is like I think like one of a really good entry if you're trying to get like a younger player into video games, basically, because it is so like simplified and it's very intuitive in terms of what it is as a 3D platforming game, basically.
Definitely. Yep. I know that'll probably end up being on this list once I finally play it. So I guess it's good that I haven't played it yet, because then it would just turn into us just gushing over the same game.
Yeah. Well, let me know. Next time you swing into town, I'll let you borrow it.
I didn't know you had it physically. All right, we'll have to.
I've beaten the game like 5 times at this point, so
nice.
I'm down to let you borrow it.
All right, we'll get there eventually, I think.
Yeah.
My number 1 is Kirby Superstar. We talked about it during our 1 year.
Yeah.
just to show,
Yeah.
how much I love this game, but it's worth repeating because it's the Kirby episode, right? It runs the full gamut of everything that you've come to expect with Kirby, between the, Spring Breeze, which is basically just Kirby's Dream Land 1 remade, and then, you get the story-driven portions like Dynablade and Revenge of Meta Knight, get the
Mm-hmm.
Great Cave Offensive, which is Kirby's like answer to the whole Metroidvania sort of
Yes.
treasure hunt kind of game. Um, Provides kind of like the mid game kind of lengthy sort of quest to go on. Gourmet Race is like a fun little mini game, right? You just basically race King Dedede. And
Yeah.
then to me, like the reward for getting through all of this is both Milky Way Wishes and the arena. Milky Way kind of like puts the whole Kirby sort of copy ability gameplay on its head, because no longer can you suck up enemies. You have to find like the totems basically.
Mm.
And then you can keep them permanently and cycle through them at any point. Basically, I just try to get plasma as fast as possible and then just destroy the whole game.
Yeah, this is funny because that almost felt like a Mega Man game in terms of
Yes.
how, because the fact you had to like change on, you had to choose like actively what the actual ability was coming out kind of be.
Right. And it was always cool for me to kind of like get the ability, and then, because it didn't click to me until I got older to like, okay, just go to the level that has plasma and then
Yeah,
just play the whole rest of the game. No, I always
just using
started at the first planet and then worked my way through. But it's fun doing that because you get to use
yeah.
sometimes, things you don't normally, copy abilities you don't normally use.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, well, Jet's actually pretty cool. Like, the Jet ability is actually really cool. Come to find out, it's the speed run ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I like using the bird. I like using fighting. I like using sword and hammer, right? But if I only had plasma the whole time, I wouldn't use anything else. So like, it's fun to kind of go about it that way. And then the arena, of course, the boss rush at the end of the game, to me, is always so much fun to be able to try to see, okay, can I keep my power up throughout the entire thing? How many max tomatoes am I going to use? And all of that. All in all, man, I can play that any day of the week. Like, I can just fire this game up and just play through it, and I'd just be so happy to play through it again. I know it's not maybe everybody's top dog, but for me, man, just having that variety inside one Kirby game is so cool. And it's just it's the game. It's one of my happy games, so it'll always be number one, unless of course Forgotten Land is that good, and then it won't be.
I mean, like, yeah, this game's great because it does have like, again, like an abridged, abridged remake of Kirby's Dream Land, right?
You're right.
The Dynablade is like, almost kind of like almost a full game within itself. The Great Cave Offensive, same thing. Like there's a lot of content in this game, right? The two mini games also very, like, they're simple, right?
Oh yeah.
The Samurai Kirby and the
Megaton
Punch. Yeah, like those are fun too. Like, just have these little mini games kind of in there as well. That's the thing too. Yeah, like, I remember mini games in general being kind of like a major part of like Kirby's identity in terms of games, right? Because like the Crystal Shards had the mini games as well too.
Yeah.
The Kirby mini games are really fun, and I remember getting really competitive in a lot of them, just because they're just fun, simple. If you want to take a break from the regular action. But yeah, no, that's fair, absolutely fair. Kirby Superstars are fantastic little. Again, there's basically just 7 games in there, and there's just like a couple other mini games, and they just there's a lot to like just kind of chew on. You know what I mean? There's I remember playing a lot of in this one specifically. I remember playing a lot of Gourmet Race. That was like the one that I would regularly go to a lot of, just because it's so repeatable.
Right, and the music. The music's
yeah,
so
the music's also fantastic. I want to say the one I played the least of was the Meta Knight one, Revenge of Meta Knight.
Yeah, because once you play it, that's it. It's done.
Yeah, it's kind of it for the most part. But again, even then, it's like if whenever I pop this one in, like I'm gonna play all of them.
Right, of course.
I'm gonna, this is like a solid weekend of games just in one cartridge, basically. So
definitely. For me, like I said, like I can play this whenever. I have revisited this game so often. Whenever I just need something to just play for like a night or 2 nights, I've gone to this so many times, man. I love this game so much.
Yeah, I respect your list, man. It's a really well thought out. Clearly, you got some again, surprisingly for you, you get two of the oldest games I think on the list. Essentially between you and me.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I mean, that's kind of where it all started for me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I didn't really have a lot of the newer games, but a 10-year-old game is fine. I think if I haven't played the newest one.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I'm surprised with for both of us, or I think I was gonna start putting it on my honorable mentions. Kirby's Air Ride. Have you played that one?
No.
No.
Fine.
Okay.
I have not played it.
So Kirby's Air Ride, it's funny because like the main game that no one really talks about. Everyone talks about like the other game, the one where you're building the best ride, essentially, right? And then you go into the battle mode. Maybe one day you should, like, when you come over, we'll play that one. But the Kirby's Air Ride is like a very fun surprise of like. Do you remember the stickers in like Smash 4's like kind of single player game kind of thing?
Yep.
Those are all inspired by Kirby's Air Ride.
Okay.
Like the design of like the stickers, like power up, speed up, kind of thing, all that stuff. Though that's literally the Kirby's Air Ride power ups.
Mm-hmm.
The strength up and all that stuff. So you if you ever take a look at this, I want to say it was Smash 4, right? I think that had that one player mode where you can put the stickers on your character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you could even play in multiplayer with them too.
Yes. So that again, that is literally like a little bit of like Hal saying, "Hey, what's up? Remember this shit?" kind of thing going on. But yeah, Kirby's Air Ride is a really, really fun game. That's also another game that I hunted for a while. I ended up pulling the trigger on it. I found a copy for $80, I think it was when I bought it. It was right before like it spiked up again recently.
Okay.
Because it spiked up to like 100 and now it's kind of back down to like 80. So I kind of caught it before the jump, basically. But yeah, it's a really, really fun one. At least take a look into it and maybe grabbing Emu for it if you need to. Because again, it's pricey for a what
20-year-old game basically at this
2003 20-year-old game. But yeah, I would say check out Air Ride. I think it's kind of like one of those little surprises essentially of like, wow, this is a little gem. I'm surprised that Nintendo hasn't remade it or even acknowledged it basically ever since it actually came out in the first place.
I think what ended up hurting it the most is because it's a GameCube racing game, right? So not only do you have Double Dash, which is like everybody's first thought of, F-Zero. You actually had an F-Zero game on GameCube.
Was that the last F-Zero?
That's the last F-Zero game, yeah.
Yeah, basically. It kind of got I whenever I think my papa made GameCube for like a racing game. Yeah, I'm a Double Dash guy. That was like
exactly.
That was my first real like the first Mario Kart that I really, really enjoyed. Like, because I was not great at Mario Kart on N64.
Right.
And I did not play the original Mario Kart on SNES until I was much older. So for me, yeah, I've played it. I played it now, and I'm like, whoa, this is hard. But yeah, like, so for me, like I was late as well onto the air ride scene. But again, the racing game, ignore the racing game. The battle mode is where it's at. Where essentially it's like, again, trying to piece together like the best ship or best thing to ride on, and then take that into the fight. 1v1 or I think you can play 4-player for the combat mode basically. But yeah, I'm surprised that didn't show up on either one of our lists.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, like I never had the chance to play it, and by then, I kind of just started playing other games and fell off a little bit, right? So that's kind of what happened there for me. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I mean, yeah. Again, like I have a good chunk now of all these Kirby games because of the fact that I started, retro game hunting,
right.
Over like 3 years ago now at this point, maybe 4 years at this point. I started retro game hunting, but I was very aggressive at trying to get all of them. And so if you ever want to see some of these, let me know because I have most of these now. So
yeah, for sure. I think it'll be good to go back and play a bunch of these,
especially the DS ones. I think those ones are like the ones I was very sad that I missed out on. Those are actually very, very fun. But yeah, I think that's really it for us for this episode. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
The little guy, my son.
Yeah, just like a Kirby game. Nice, short, sweet, to the point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. If you enjoyed this, let us know your favorite Kirby game. We're on social media. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Let us know what you think. What's your favorite Kirby game? Enjoy your Kirby day, everyone.
See ya. Pollo!